This is the showdown of the two best pinball players in this town. Greg, over here. Okay, hold it down. And first, over there.
Okay, Bert, call it. Heads. You got it. Okay, boys, you know the rules of the game. Play hard and fair. Wish you both the best of luck, and may the best man win.
Only the best man will win. A date with your chick?
Go for it.
I can't wait.
We'll just see. You're up.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
The following film podcast frequently contains adult content, including foul language and descriptions of adult situations. Spoilers for the films discussed occur often. Listener discretion is advised. Now take it away, Dr. Rausch.
They must be destroyed on sight.
Okay, welcome back to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. We're at episode 174 now, and I'm your host, Lee. Just one chew and it comes in your mouth, Russell. And I'm joined by my co-host, Daniel. I ain't showing you my wonders. Harper, how you doing, sir?
I have not, in any sense, shown you my wonders on this podcast. I'm really holding back the good stuff until we get that sweet Squarespace money.
Until I turn into like a buxom redhead who demands it.
Yeah, or that. Sure, that would work.
maybe I'm putting my fantasy in place of yours.
I don't know. A buxom redhead in Nova Scotia is not as good as a Squarespace sponsorship, which would give me money here.
Yeah. So we're continuing our sex comedy series here, and we're going to be looking at Pinball Summer, also known as Pickup Summer, from 1980. But before we get into that, got a few things to mention here. First off, I'll mention I was on the latest episode of Cinema Beef with Gary Hill, who's been on this podcast, and we did Firewalker from 1986 and River of Death from 1989, both canon films, and one good, one pretty terrible.
Wonderful. I've been looking at the discourse on our Facebook page around your appearance on that, and it both made me want to listen to that podcast and watch the films. So, fuck you both, ultimately.
Firewalker is actually worth watching, though. It's actually kind of fun. But
okay.
But River of Death, no, everything we talk about on River of Death is all you need to know about that film. Like,
okay.
My dead-on impression of Michael Dudikoff doing the voiceovers in that film are pretty much spot on to what you get. So,
yeah. Well, there's no impression that you will ever do that will match the Vinnie Jones you did when we talked about the Eurotrip. When we talked about Eurotrip.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
You haven't been watching enough Vinnie Jones lately to really kind of like dig into the hilarity of that. It was a moment. It's fine.
If my bad impressions give people joy, then that's all I care about.
I don't even do bad impressions because my bad impressions don't even make any sense. So, it's like, oh, what are you doing? It's fine. We're good.
So we have some comments here. Jeff Williams, this is in response to our last episode where we talked about, what was the name of that fucking film again? California
Dreaming.
I keep wanting to call it like American Dreaming or something.
I want to call it Breaking the Waves, which is a completely different film. But
yeah, I don't know. I keep fucking up the title on that, even when I'm trying to remember it for some weird reason. I don't know why. But he says, wow, I really didn't expect Daniel to bring a socioeconomic political perspective to my dopey beach movie recommendation. Well done, sir.
Do you not know what I do here? I ruin the fun of everything. That's just the goal.
And he also linked, I think it was either a GIF or a meme of Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction, the scene where he gets the coffee from Quentin Tarantino. Oh, this is some of that gourmet shit.
Right.
And I was like, well, yeah, Daniel often brings the gourmet shit, as in, the coffee cherries that are eaten by civets in like South America and then shit out, and then that's harvested for the coffee.
This podcast turns my opinions into shit. That's kind of what I'm learning from this conversation you had with Jeff Williams. Anyway, yes, I agree. It's great.
It sounded now that I say it, it sounds like I'm being a lot more mean than I intended. I apologize.
No, I took it completely as a completely unwarranted, a compliment. But please, let's move on, or else I'm going to get a big head, and that's not something we need before we discuss a piece of cinematic brilliance as Greatest Pickup Summer.
So anyway, he also goes, "Uh-oh, I'm fresh out of movie suggestions," which is a lie, by the way, by the time we get to the end of this comment. But being that I'm your biggest Patreon donor...
I love, by the time we get to the end of this comment, he has completely changed his opinion. Yeah, he
hasn't changed his opinion. He just lied. He didn't realize it because he ends up recommending a movie without even intending to.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm fresh out of movie suggestions, but being that I'm your biggest Patreon donor and lone listener, I feel an obligation to contribute something. So here's a song recommendation for Blood on the Tracks episode. Another podcast I do on this feed, if you follow this feed. And the song is Genie from a movie called The Bermuda Depths from 1978. And it says, a love ballad may seem a little incongruous in a film that features Apollo Creed hunting Gamora's cousin with a rocket-propelled harpoon, but is nonetheless a haunting and poetic ode to a cursed mermaid. And I was actually looking into the film, and it actually looks kind of interesting because it is kind of like a fantasy film where I think Toho Studios was involved as a co-producer. So there's like a giant fucking turtle, and there's like the Toho fucking effects in this like drama fantasy about this dude who's obsessed with a mermaid he met as a child or some shit. It looks really interesting, actually.
So it's like Splash, but good.
Splash of Tom Hanks, yeah.
Keep Daryl Hannah, remove Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Make it NC-17. That's that's how you make Splash. Sorry, I have no comment. Yes, I would love to see the film. Jeff Williams is our favorite commenter. Mm-hmm. Everyone else should aspire to be as good as Jeff Williams. I like to inspire infighting among our commenters. Is a thing that I'm doing right now. Yeah. But we're eventually probably going to cover that.
I think that's actually going to be on Jeff Williams' recommendation month that we do or whatever.
Okay. Cool.
It's just such a weird fucking looking movie that I'm like, yeah, that I think that even fits this podcast better than whatever awesome film noir he's recommended in the past. So.
Yeah. Is it weird and basically unknown? Have 4 people seen the film? That's a film that like we just cover by standard. It's just what we do. Yeah. It's like, dig that up. Maybe it's awesome and we can recommend it. And then 20 people can write letters to some DVD production company as a way of trying to get it released. And it will never happen because we have no pull in the industry, despite the fact that I think, I re-listen to this podcast sometimes. It's a good show. I think more people should pay attention to it. But it's fine. It's fine. We're just gonna keep going on. More comments, Lee?
No, that's it for comments. So we can move on to what we watched in the last while. Do you have anything you watched?
Really only been tracking actual terrorist incidents among Nazis lately. I have no time to actually watch movies. It's fine. So what have you been watching, Lee?
I watched on Netflix last night a movie called Logan Lucky.
Logan Lucky? Is that like Logan's Run, but he goes to Vegas? That feels no. Okay.
Or is it Lucky Logan? I can't remember which God damn, that's terrible. I should have written this shit down. But it's
You watched the film. I didn't. Though I feel like it's a Netflix original. I feel like I've seen that kind of pop up in my feed. What is it about?
It's a comedy heist film, and it's a very good one. It's set in the Deep South. Is Virginia the fucking Deep South?
Virginia is not the Deep South.
Okay,
no.
well, it's somewhere around there anyway. I don't know. It's all the same to me.
It's your opinion. It's fine. It's fine. I get it.
They all have Southern accents.
I grew up in the Deep South. I grew up in like the deepest part of the Deep South. But
okay, yeah. No, you're in like Nebraska or someplace. I get it.
No. Exactly. You're right.
But it's got Daniel. It's got Daniel Craig in it. He's the fucking safe cracker guy that can blow into the safe they got to get into. They basically it involves NASCAR. NASCAR is featured prominently in this, where they're basically stealing from a racetrack. And so
I have seen the ads for this. Yes, I have definitely seen the ads for this.
It's got Adam Driver in it, playing a guy with, well, if you say he has one arm, he'll correct you and say, no, I have most of my arm. I lost my hand and some of my forearm. He goes into this whole spiel. It's those sort of heightened Southern characters that are funny. It's kind of almost on a Fargo kind of level of humor in a way, but they're a bit more heightened, so they're kind of goofy caricatures of Southerners.
Hold on. More heightened than Fargo?
Yeah, in a way they are.
Sure.
Because, they're likable, and generally when you think, I'm going to see a movie about a bunch of people in the South, I'm probably not going to like half of them, but everybody in this film is kind of likable, and it's funny, and it's a good little heist film.
I just think a little bit like an Elmore Leonard novel.
It is. It very much is in that sort of vein, yeah. It's even got Hilary Swank in it, who shows up in like the last half of the film.
Does she do a Southern accent?
She does.
I'm going to have to check it out just to see if she can do a Southern accent.
But yeah,
I'll report back.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. And I just like Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig's kind of an ugly guy, honestly. Like he's not a traditionally handsome dude, and he works as like this sort of fucking no fat on him fucking redneck muscle machine guy who's just fucking crazy and you wouldn't want to fuck with him, and he's just really super entertaining in this. Like he totally disappears the role.
I really want to see Daniel Craig play a beach bum. Like I really want to see him do like last week we talked about the guy who's like the big surfer guy who's like I really want to see him like grow his hair out and like wear like the open Hawaiian shirt and the sort of the white t-shirt and like shorts and like shitty sandals and just walking around on a beach and be like this stoner like vaguely homeless beach bum guy. That's kind of what I want to see Daniel Craig do. Actually, I think that should be like a standard test for actors. It shouldn't be Shakespeare. It should be that. Like play that character and you can do anything. That's my yeah. When I open an acting school, I have no experience in acting or talking about acting or theorizing about acting. But I'm going to open an acting school and that's going to be the final exam. Yeah, that's where we're going to go with that.
Jeff Bridges and Sheen Penn will be the teachers.
And Joaquin Phoenix. No.
Joaquin Phoenix.
We are one of the great movie podcasts. We can't remember actor names. It's great. And whenever we do Italian films, it's hilarious listening to you do the. Let's just move on.
Keanu Reeves, he'll be the dean of your.
Yeah, no, yeah, I could see that. Yeah. No, I'm gonna hire Keanu Reeves. I'm gonna like give him the chance, the opportunity to do something with his life.
Yeah, that loser. That fucker who like totally sunk his career in Dracula. Like
who's like no one would hire him. Who's like the one big name Hollywood actor that kind of everybody loves because it turns out everybody who interacts with him kind of knows he's like a really decent human being. Yeah. Which is that's literally nobody else has that experience. But Keanu Reeves is great. So, yeah.
Yeah.
We should do some more Keanu Reeves movies. That's kind of where I'm landing on this. Jeff Williams, give us suggestions for Keanu Reeves movies.
Well, I mean, it gets better after Johnny Mnemonic. I mean, we kind of hit bottom.
Oh, yeah, we did hit that one, yeah. Well, there's a new Bill and Ted movie coming out. Maybe we need to do this the Bill and Ted movies at some point.
Oh, yeah, that's a possibility.
Yeah,
we should move on. This whole opening fucking segment's been a fucking train wreck.
It's almost as if we have to talk about a movie of which we have not much to say.
Yeah,
And so,
and also that we've just been stumbling over shit because we were already recording a podcast and drinking.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
that surely is not something that happens to us on a regular basis.
No, not at all. So, yeah, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to play some music from Pinball Summer or Pickup Summer, depending on what you prefer. And we'll play a podcast promo or two, maybe, and then we'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the cursed earth, the Psychosemanticast.
Let us face, without panic, the reality of our time. The fact that atom bombs may someday be dropped on our cities. And let us prepare for survival by understanding the weapon that threatens us.
To have an ignorant, thin-skinned megalomaniac who sends off on Twitters at 3 a.m. if somebody angered him.
Neo-Nazis turning up in Washington, D.C. to have a rally saying Heil Trump.
We talk about politics.
I knew I couldn't trust you corporate greaseballs!
We talk about movies.
You can't come down here and arrest people just because of what they look like. Are you crazy? But that's police harassment.
We talk about political movies.
We're in trouble. The whole world's in trouble. They're all around us and we never knew it. You can only see them with these special glasses.
The Psychosemanticast.
You ungodly warlock!
Flyers Motel. It's where you go but never tell. It may be seedy, but it's cash and carry, and no one signs the register. You can be sure no one's noticed you, 'cause they practice as you do. Flyers Motel. Flyers Motel. Flyers Motel. Flyers Motel, where many young girls come to sell. Some folks have told me some scandalous stories about young boys turning into men. It may be obscure, but many find a cure for lonely nights when they feel blue. Flyers Motel. Flyers Motel. Flyers Motel. Flyers Motel. Flyers Motel.
All right. Pinball Summer, also known as Pickup Summer from 1980.
Now, some kids like good, clean fun.
I know.
And some kids don't like good, clean fun.
Excuse me!
Some kids like to mess around.
Hold it! Everybody up.
And some kids like to fool around.
What the hell's going on?
I beg your pardon.
Care for a toke?
And that's what Pinball Summer is really all about. Things like making trouble. And making out.
I guess I haven't changed my socks in a couple of days.
Getting high.
You're lighting it the wrong way, Frankie.
And riding high.
You drowned my bike! It doesn't even know how to swim! Pinball Summer, I'll take you on. Pinball Summer, won't you come along? Well, that way, damn it! It's those damn kids down at that arcade! Take a chance, come along with me. I'm gonna show you a real good time. Come on, baby, you look so fine.
What a stupid idea!
I'll be fine. Got an oxygen mask?
Pinball Summer, I'll take you along. Like the thing that cheated face. Pinball Summer, won't you come along?
Pinball Summer. A movie that makes you wish that summer would last forever. Pinball Summer.
AKA Flipper Girls, which
Flipper Girls? It's called
which-
Flipper Girls? Is that the name it's given in Japan?
that's the West Germany
The
title,
West
I believe.
It was 1980, right? There was a West and East Germany.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also known as Pinball Pickup, which I believe was like one of the Scandinavian titles for it as well.
Which just kind of comes down to, Pinball Summer, Pickup Summer.
Mhm.
They could have called it Summer, and then they thought, no, that's stupid. Pinball Pickup. That's clearly what we should call it. Yep.
Yeah, this was made in Canada, released in 1980. It was re-released in the U.S. in 1983 under the Pickup Summer title.
Right.
And
After the pinball craze had kind of ended,
Right.
when people had moved on to the much more enduring legacy of Pac-Man.
I always assumed the Pickup Summer title was like in reference to hitchhiking, but at that point, hitchhiking wasn't a thing people did in the USA anymore unless they wanted to be murdered.
Yeah, the late 70s were a high point for serial murder of hitchhikers.
Yes.
Which is totally something. When we do transition into being a true crime podcast, that's going to be the angle we take. We go where the audience is, and it's true crime. It's totally true crime.
Yeah, by the time we get to true crime will be dead. Everyone will be like, I don't even know what the fuck they'll be talking
We're
about.
going to start a true crime podcast, and it's going to turn out everybody really wants to do. Let's do really nerdy, alcohol-infused examinations of old movies from the 70s and 80s. And we will have been left behind on that. Oh no, that's old news. Those guys. Who cares? NPR is going to produce a 7-part series on perfect timing, and it's going to be amazing, and we will get no credit for it. That's our future.
Papushka is going to get interviewed and shit, and it's
And she will hate every second of it. I promise.
Yeah,
But
probably,
anyway,
yeah.
We should move on from this.
Directed by George Mihalka, who went on to do the much more famous My Bloody Valentine, which is one of the classic slasher films out of Canada. Written by Richard Zelnicker, who did basically nothing. Although a lot of people in this cast actually ended up having careers afterwards. It's sort of a common theme with, hey, if it's a Canadian production, they've probably been in every other Canadian movie like 30 years down the road from this kind of thing for the most part. So
I kind of feel like they're little like Canadian actors who end up doing like a ton of like TV. So like the handful of series that get shot in Canada. It's one of those things that I listened to a podcast about movies from the Hallmark Network. Hallmark Network, and a bunch of those are shot in Canada. Like they're basically like 3-week productions. They're shot in Canada, and that podcast gets way more listeners than we do. And so like you can just DM me if you want to know what it is. It's a great podcast. It's usually entertaining, but I'm not going to name it intentionally because like why bother?
Yeah, fuck them guys. They're our competition. Fuck them.
They're our competition. Yeah, they do actually funny jokes, but they often like talk about like I recognize that guy from like Primeval or Stargate SG-1 or like whatever.
Yeah.
Because
anyway.
Anyway.
That's the situation I run into all the time, like seeing these people. Like we have Michael Zelnicker as Greg. I assume he's probably related to Richard Zelnicker, but it just seems a little too much of a coincidence there.
Zelnicker is a really common name, Lee. I feel like you're being just slightly insensitive to the Zelnicker. Like,
am I hating on all the Jewish community right now? Is that what I'm doing?
I'm not gonna say you're a vicious anti-Semite, but like.
Should I put some brackets around this guy's last name? Is that what
we should really just cut all of this?
Oh my god!
This is literally based. We should just cut all of that. It's fine. Moving on.
Carl Moet as Steve, Karen Steven as Donna, and we have a return here. Aline Ud, who is from One Night Only, as Susie. And Thomas Kovacs as Bert, Joey McNamara as Wimpy, and the awesome Joy Bushell as Sally, who went on to have a nice little... This is her debut. She went on to have a nice little 10-year career of doing some horror and exploitation stuff and some TV in Canada, and retired. And I actually looked her up on Facebook, and she seems really happy. So
that's awesome. I do love that. I do love it when you find like, hey, you had a career. You're a really decent human being. You're off. You're selling real estate. Real estate is ultimately a scam built on like capitalist exploitation. But like you're doing the thing, and so yeah.
She's not even in real estate. She's in.
Sorry, I wasn't saying she was in real estate, but you find that a lot.
She's in like production, graphic design, and like some sort of. I don't even know what the industry is, but she's apparently doing really well because she's always taking trips like Rome and shit. So there you go.
Well, so she did fine for herself, and
yeah. So we have a little synopsis here from Echo Bridge Home Entertainment from IMDb.
Oh God, this is gonna be great. Okay.
Do kids today think of anything but cruising around, playing games, and making out? Not the kids from this suburban town who decide to live it up when school lets out. Chief cruisers are Greg and his buddy Steve. Their targets? 2 bouncy, fun-loving sisters, Donna and Susie. Their hangouts? OJ's Drive-In, where the gang meets to eat, and Pete's Arcade. A cast of colorful characters include Bert and his gang of punk bikers, Wimpy Pete's inept fix-it man, Sally, an appetizing waitress. How far she goes, nobody knows. The town flasher, who risks catching pneumonia every chance he gets, and 2 cops who spend all their time keeping up with the local loonies. Anything and everything goes. Sure.
It has about as much plot summary as there is plot in the film, so
Yeah.
But it doesn't really mention pinball, which is kind of the weird.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. I assume this is like Echo Bridge Home Entertainment presents pickup.
Like it feels like somebody like kind of doing like a DVD release or like pretending to do a DVD release or whatever, and
I assume this is under the Pickup Summer title. Like even if you watch the trailer for Pickup Summer, the theme song Pinball Summer, you just hear the music, you don't hear the lyrics where it says Pinball Summer. There's like 2 different trailers, and you can. That's how much fucking time I spent trying to research this shit.
Yeah.
All right, so Daniel, I definitely know this is the first time you've seen this film.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So,
watched it this afternoon.
Yeah. So, what are your sort of initial thoughts on this one?
I feel like this, would fit pretty well as a companion piece to Joysticks, a film that we did like last year. In the sense of, it kind of goes along with a cultural fad. In this case, it's pinball, and Joysticks is obviously sort of arcade video games. It's a little bit less silly than that one. It's a lot more kind of about people who are actually 25 pretending they're 17, hanging out. It's very much a hangout movie.
Yep.
It's very much a, it's pleasant. It's worth sort of experiencing on that level. It's as deep as a feather. Pardon me. I don't know.
It's as heavy as a
bad
feather.
metaphor.
Yeah,
it's the heaviest of it. There's no depth to this at all. There's no, a lot of the films that we cover on this podcast, I kind of watch, we talk about, and then, I forget until the episode comes out, and I re-listen and go, oh, yeah, that happened in that movie. I'm literally, I watched this afternoon, and I'm kind of on the, what happened in this movie again? It's got some pinball stuff. It's got some tough guys who look like they are kind of taken out of sort of late 60s biker flicks.
Or the beach party movies, with Eric Von Zipper.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it feels very much like it's sort of ripping that off, although it's, 15 years later and kind of, it does the thing. I don't know.
Joysticks had the same thing, right?
Well, Joysticks was having fun with that idea, right?
Yeah.
Joysticks was like, oh yeah, we're gonna have the biker gang, and they're gonna ride tricycles around, and it was kind of parroting the idea, whereas this is kind of doing it a little bit more straight. I do kind of like the idea of shooting a beach party movie in Montreal or wherever, where it's there's water, but it definitely does not look like Southern California, and the fact that it just kind of looks like sort of a depressing environment just kind of gives me that. I don't know. I just kind of like the idea of we're gonna do a beach movie and we're gonna set it at the shittiest beach we can find. I don't know. It just kind of amuses me. Aesthetically, I legitimately kind of because so many of our lives just kind of exist in that. Oh yeah, we go to the beach. The beach is a lake that nobody really cares about outside of our Tri-County area, but it's we have to have dominance on that beach or whatever. I do kind of adore that, although it seems to be completely unintentional by the film. I don't know. There's some pinball footage at the beginning and the end, and in the middle it's kind of a bunch of meaningless plot details. A lot of people fighting over a trophy that nobody actually seems to care about, but it is. Yeah, no, that's kind of all I have to say about the movie. So
yeah. So this is really a raunchier version of those Crown International sort of formula pictures. I mean, it's very much. It feels like a cross between Malibu Beach and Van Nuys Boulevard to me. Because you got the two male leads and they're dating the twos,
but not as good as either of them.
No, definitely not. Like you said, Joysticks is definitely sort of comparison here. And I'd even say Recruits, because of the raunchiness, it kind of fits into sort of Recruits, whereas we don't have story or characters.
There's not much of that in this. I don't.
We just have a lot of tits and asses.
But not even it didn't strike me as being really that even tit heavy. I don't know. There are tits in it, but not that many.
Honestly, I'd say this movie is very much fetishizing asses more than anything else.
Yeah, true enough. Oh well, there's some nice ass shots. I'll give you. My apologies, sir.
Well,
there are very many women in short shorts bending over things for no reason You're right. You are correct, sir.
I would say
I will take it back. This is a masterpiece on the order of Citizen Kane.
Yeah, definitely. It's the ass film for the ages. No, but yeah, a lot of short shorts, a lot of great-looking female asses. But then you have bare male asses, too, so there's almost a comparable ratio there.
A lot of dudes, mooning other dudes.
There's a lot of dudes wrestling other dudes in some scenes.
There is a part of me that wants to, put together a homoerotic reading of this film, and there's another part.
I was.
Please express the homoeroticism.
Our two male leads, they're at the very least bisexual, because they are throughout the entire film. These two guys are very close to each other. They're touching each other constantly. They're centimeters away from each other half the time. like talking to each other, like they're right in each other's faces.
Mhm.
Half the time talking. These two dudes are, once they get into college, they're fucking each other. Like that's all there is.
And they have the kind of like that kind of Jufro hair, and I kind of think they're a little bit on that Wham level, just kind of looking at. So yeah, no, I could kind of get that. I mean, I just kind of took it as like you're right. It is pretty homoerotic, although it's never explicit in the text. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about that. I was kind of watching. I'm like, yeah, these are just two dude bros who are just kind of way too into each other in the sense of,
they love each other.
Wanting to kind of be each other. But you're right. Yeah. Like I could totally see them being in a relationship down the line. Yeah, they don't really care about their girlfriends. Like they seem perfectly fine, kind of like shitting on their girlfriends. And not really caring about their needs in pursuit of each other's approval. So, yeah, you're right. There's a totally homoerotic reading of this that I completely missed. This is where Lee, I admit, you're the better reviewer at this point.
Great, Jeff Williams. Here's the fucking social, political fucking reading that you were expecting from Daniel this time.
Yeah, I was just completely on the like bully kind of nerd thing, and kind of reading it through that lens, and I completely missed the really obvious homoeroticism.
Yeah, because these two are rivals with the leader of the biker gang, and when you think about it, the leader of the biker gang, he doesn't care that he has Sally, who is throwing herself at him constantly as his girlfriend, Joy Buchel.
Amazing.
Yeah, and she wants to fuck him all the time, and he's like, sometime later. It's like, what are you doing? You would rather compete with these two guys for this stupid trophy than just I'm ditching this movie.
It's ultimately toxic masculinity personified, right? Like he has to have the symbol to prove that he's more masculine, that he has like bested these other two men in ritualized combat, as opposed to like, and then there's a pretty girl in short shorts who like everybody else wants to get with, who is throwing herself at you, and you're like, no, hold on, I've got to like prove my bone. No, you're just fine. Just go sleep with the girl.
It's so bad that Sally is always flirting with everybody else because she's not getting enough from her boyfriend.
Well,
that's what's happening in this movie. And
I like to think that guy's actually really bad in bed, though. Like, so
he probably is, because she's passed out, and I didn't get the impression. Like, there's one scene where you see them two in bed, and she's passed out, and I get the impression that he didn't fuck her out. She just, this is boring, I'm falling asleep.
Right.
Yeah. Like she's dead asleep, and she doesn't look like she's disheveled or she had a good time in bed. She's just like, I'm sleeping.
He's a two-pump chump is kind of where I'm landing on that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, fucking our heroes in this, put the homosexual eroticism thing aside for a moment. They're terrible people. They're like incredibly terrible people.
I literally just banged into my microphone in case that came. I was nodding. I've got the microphone just slightly. I'm gonna move it slightly away from my face. I literally just was like, I moved my head forward and suddenly like banged into my microphone because I'm a professional.
This is that kind of show, I think.
It's fine.
Yeah, but no, they're fucking terrible to everybody. They're bullies. Like they're fucking bullies. They're not people you can root for. And the fucking
they have like, what's the source of the like? I kind of missed the detail. Like, where did the trophy come from to begin with?
It came from the pinball arcade. Here's the trophy. It's in the pinball arcade, and if you enter the competition,
so you get it for winning at pinball. Is that the okay? And so suddenly, like the tough guys just steal it for bragging points or whatever.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it becomes like a thing where we spend like 35 minutes in the middle of the film where it just kind of goes back and forth a couple of times, where they're just kind of fighting about who gets to own the trophy.
Yeah, and it's so weird. At times it seems like it's super something they're focused on, but by the time you get to the end of the film, they're like, I don't care anymore. It's just like they throw it away. It means nothing. It's just a bragging rights thing.
Well, and you could read this. You could read this definitely as sort of like, we have these like baubles. We have these things that like sort of signal our social status that matter to us deeply. for 2 weeks during this kind of pinball summer of 1979 or whatever, and then like ultimately kind of like mean nothing afterwards. But this film doesn't do that at all. I mean, people thought, oh yeah, maybe you're over intellectualizing the film from last week. But I think that film actually kind of was trying to say something. I don't think this film was trying to say anything at all, except for like pinball is a fad, and we want people to come see our movie.
That's the weird thing is, they're just kind of like throwing stuff into this to see what works. The re-release of this in 1983 in the U.S. must have been like puzzling the people, because pinballs weren't big in 1983 anymore, really. They were moving to like video game arcades at that point.
Mid 70s is kind of the peak of that. I mean, with like Tommy, right, in 1975, and then like even in 1980, it was still popular, but it wasn't like a thing. But then by 83, it was totally, everybody was doing the arcade instead. And the arcade games, I actually do admire like some of the stuff in the film about the pinball games, about like kind of like watching there's like nice footage of kind of how the pinball machines work, and kind of like people competing against them and that sort of thing. Like there's some good stuff there. That's fairly entertaining. And if the film kind of delved into that a little bit more, I was kind of like thinking we should do the Donkey Kong documentary, King of Kong.
Yeah.
Well, you should do that documentary at some point. I think that would be a fun one.
Especially since what's his name got fucking exposed as being a total fraud.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Like I was literally watching this film and thinking, like, there are better films. We should be doing those instead.
I'm really
always a good sign. Always a good sign.
I'm really surprised that this movie just didn't go hardcore into like getting every possible shot they could of girls jiggling over a pinball machine.
There's very little of that.
Yeah.
I mean, not even like bending over. Like it feels funny. Like, look, we're a couple of middle-aged white dudes who were talking about like 17-year-olds in short shorts here. So like there's something that's kind of legitimately creepy about like us talking about it at all. And so I'm not trying to like push a particular agenda in terms of what this should be. But if you're going to make a film that's sort of about pretty girls and pinball, it's kind of an obvious thing to like film a bunch of shots of like pretty girls bending over a pinball machine.
Fuck it,
Dan. It feels like a really obvious choice, right?
I'm putting my fucking fist down here. I demand that if you're going to make a movie about fucking pinball machines, you have to have topless women jiggling over the pinball machines as they play pinball. That has to happen.
Or even just like I kind of really like legitimately love the short shorts and like its baseball top, like the that particular like early 80s t-shirt with no bra. Like that's a legitimate. Oh my
god,
like,
there's so many like
there's so much of that in this
bras.
film. There's so much of that in this film, and it's the best thing about the film. It's the best thing about the films made like this in that era. It's glorious stuff. And now that I'm saying it, I kind of want to go into Pornhub and see if I could like find, like there's got to be some like, mini vids like subcategory or something where like I could buy a bunch of clips of people doing this if it pleased me. Which I'm not actually going to do because but it does seem like if you're going to make this film, there should be like that sort of stuff in the film, and there's very little of that kind of here. I mean, it strikes me as like, if you're going to be like the lascivious, like sex comedy, give us the goods. I don't know. It feels a little kind of mushy on it.
I feel really bad that I'm more sleazy than the producers of these films. Come on now, you gotta get some of these girls, you gotta get them topless over the fucking pinball machines. I want a 10-minute sequence of 5 naked girls just doing these pinball machines. I mean, that should have been the final contest. It should have been, like, they have a beauty pageant.
Yeah, they have a beauty pageant. I don't even remember the beauty pageant.
It's like, why? Like, why? Why not have, like, 5 topless women play pinball and they win whatever?
Or like wet t-shirt contest or something, like like you and I should go back in time to 1979 in Montreal and make this film and make it good.
I would be a better sleazy pre-Weinstein producer of this shit. And oh my god, it just makes me sound so bad.
This is not a conversation we should be having in public.
But fucking I mean,
we should cut this whole episode. We're done.
No,
So-
no, it's all staying. It's all staying.
All
If this ruins us, then so be it. So we learn in this film that just like we know today in real life, in the modern context of video games are the cause of all violence in the world, pinball machines are the cause of all violence back in 1980.
Because you're like thugs who play play pinball games and harass like little old ladies.
Yeah, and it just inspires violence. That's all that happens. I love
And
how
the terrible thing is like dude putting coins on strings into the pinball machine and then pulling them out so they can play the pinball machine.
I don't think that would actually work. I think they're designed that they don't work that way.
Well, I was just, I've read a lot of the like kind of hacking literature and stuff from like the 70s and early 80s, and little teenage hackers kind of got into doing this stuff through like just wanting to make long distance phone calls or like one hack pinball machines and that sort of thing. So like that makes sense, but it doesn't make sense that it's the big tough guy in the leather jacket who's like, I've learned how to like figure out the exact weighted thing that I play this pinball machine all day. Like no, it's some Poindexter in like a shirt that looks like a tablecloth. Like that's the guy who's doing that.
So let's talk briefly about the character of Wimpy, who is the
sure,
who's the
most
man.
interesting character, clearly.
Yeah, he's the fix-it man guy. He's supposed to be portrayed as the the fat slob guy, although he's not really fat. He's just he's a little slightly.
They portray him as like, oh, he eats 4 cheeseburgers and 2 hot dogs, for lunch, but he's skinnier than I am.
Everybody else in this film compared to him is a fucking skeleton anyway. So it's like,
right.
But so he might be sympathetic in some regards here because he's the guy who's like bullied by both sides, and he's sort of played by both sides because he's got the knowledge of how to rig the game.
If we did want to get a little like socio-political here, he kind of represents the oppressed technical class who has like no social standing, who is kind of courted by the popular kids, by the bullies, as a way of he's courted by them in opposition to a sort of more freewheeling bohemian, kind of underclass, So we could read it that way. He's the Jar Jar Binks in Revenge of the Sith,
although less racist. Yeah,
although a less racist caricature, which
but
isn't saying much. But
I would feel sympathetic for this guy, but as the movie goes on, you kind of learn that he's just maybe like 2 rejections away from wearing a fedora and saying "milady" every other sentence. You know?
No. Like every dude in this film is kind of a terrible human being. He's definitely that. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I love how the pinball machine and one of the pinball machines in this apparently is sentient and it talks to people.
Like comes alive and starts talking to people. And at first you think it's like the one guy who's just sort of hearing it from his, like he's just hallucinating, but then the girl next to him is also hearing it. And so, yeah, it's just sort of like a sentient pinball machine.
And then when we get to the final chase scene, Joy Bichel's character is sitting on it. And here again, it comes to my creepy 80s producer thoughts. Why didn't you make the fucking video game machine a vibrator, and why didn't she get off on it? Because it starts talking to her.
Pinball machine is Sibian. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Like, ultimately, we need to contact kink.com and make the feature-length version of this with full BDSM. That's where I land on this.
Yeah, because this movie isn't smutty enough. Like, let's face it.
No, it's clearly not. Yeah.
Because if I was producing this movie, if I was some fucking Crown International style producer who was making this sex comedy, the pinball machine can talk? That's great. Can it vibrate on its own? Sure, why not? All right, let's get Joy there. Yeah, that the redhead with the big bazooms. Let's get her on that. Let's make it vibrate. Let's have her have an orgasm. Come on now, guys.
Any conversation that has the word bazooms in it is a good conversation.
But I mean, I'm just looking at the missed opportunities in this film.
Yeah, no. I mean, like, missed opportunity is one of those things that you always feel like it's one of the most frustrating things of like, well, you had it right there, and then you chose not to do it for whatever reason. And, part of that is budgetary, part of that is taste, and part of it is not wanting to get involved with the mob who, like, controlled the porn industry at this time, I'm sure.
Right.
But ultimately, yeah, I will completely forget this film by the time this episode comes out. Like, I have no, like, functioning memory of it. And, it's not even like this was, I say this fairly regularly on this podcast. This was pretty painless to watch. Like, it was a fine, like, watch. But I have no memory of it. And so that's kind of where I land on it. Like, it's perfectly fine. Go check it out. The one thing I'm sad about is that there's no, like, a kind of legal streaming thing. It is on YouTube. It is on DVD. You're going to talk about this briefly, but, I really wish there was a legal way to stream this, because I think, I basically think everything should be, like, available for like $1.50 rental at this point, but yeah, that's where I land.
Yeah. The movie does give you, at least at the very least, strip pinball. It gives you a wet t-shirt car wash scene.
It does.
The strip pinball gives you more Joy Bouchel, all you want to see, basically, for the most part, which is awesome. She's absolutely lovely.
She's quite a good actress as well.
She is,
just to, kind of, you really buy her in the role. I mean, it seems silly to kind of point that out, but she is quite good.
What do you think of the rich dude character? Because this goes back to our two leads bullying people. Like, they bully this guy for no reason. Like, yeah, he's a rich doofus. Okay, I get it. He's inept. He's a doofus. He's a rich guy. But he didn't do anything to these guys.
Well,
they fuck with him so relentlessly.
Do you want to go slightly, like, weird and deep on this, or do you want to just kind of, like, let it go?
Go ahead. Throw it in.
Okay. Did you ever watch The Office?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. The U.S. version of The Office, it has, Jim Halpert, who is John Krasinski, and then Dwight Schrute, who is Rainn Wilson. And Jim is constantly playing pranks on Dwight. And in the UK version, there are pranks, but ultimately the show doesn't really last that long, and so you don't really, like, have to kind of deal with the consequences of that, or sort of it's just kind of like a funny thing. And at first in the US version, you kind of get that same sense. And I am going somewhere with this, right? Dwight Schrute, as written in the show, is like this absolutely terrible, like, fascist, like, violent character, which they've just kind of taken all the, like, they've just rubbed all the, like, rough edges off, and so he's just this kind of, like, weird guy who lives on a beet farm and is obsessed with weapons and fighting and cops, etc. And this is something that Greg Daniels Properties, he created, like, Dale Gribble and Ron Swanson as well, so it does kind of give you the sense of this is something that I've been thinking about a lot. I actually really do like all three of those series: King of the Hill, The Office, and Parks and Recreation. Anyway, and the reason I say that is that at a certain point the show does sort of question Jim's, like, kind of, like, continuing pranking of this guy. We don't see him as, like, oh, he's basically a Nazi, even though, like, he's not. Like, they just sort of, he's annoying, and so we prank him, and it's funny to the audience, and we can, but also in character, this is, like, a really disgustingly nasty thing to do. And the show does, like, address that at some point, although it never really addresses it in kind of a coherent way. I kind of treat that in the same way here, like, where these are, like, rich assholes who are, like, kind of coming in and, like, well, they don't really necessarily do anything against these guys. It's pretty clear that these are intended to be kind of the kind of capitalist exploiter class, etc. And then ultimately we see our leads who are just kind of bullies, bullying them and kind of making fun and kind of doing the thing that they do. And so while maybe on a surface level, our rich assholes are not necessarily doing anything specifically against them. It's just kind of coded in that way. It reminded me a little bit of, like, the Caddyshack kind of context.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a thing that we've just kind of lost from films at this point, and like, our culture just doesn't do that anymore. And I think that does kind of, I mean, from a broader kind of sociopolitical angle, it's neoliberalism has kind of taken over our media and everything, and we lack a class consciousness, and we kind of treat like slobs versus snobs as sort of a generic kind of jokey thing that kind of only exists in movies of this era, but it was kind of responding to a very real dynamic in a crude and vulgar way. But so you asked, and so I answered.
No, it's good. Seeing them stuff all that food up their tailpipe in their car, that was gross as shit.
I am almost certain I have seen this film before, because I believe I have seen that when I was a kid. I saw that scene, I think. I have vivid memories of that scene, although I have no memory of the overall film. But then again, even now, I have no real memory of the overall film. So, I could have seen it 20 times and just forgotten it every time.
Yeah.
Just passes over. No, I'm pretty sure I saw this when I was 13 years old and up all night or something, and just kind of forgot it. But
yeah,
I do remember that scene. I do remember the stuffing of ever more complicated ingredients
they
into the
stuff
car.
A full pizza into it at some point.
I mean, and can you imagine? Having to pull that shit out the next day.
It just gets weird, and just fun visuals. We have a flasher who he's wearing garters to hold up his fake pant legs, which is just kind of funny. But yeah, where I land on this is it's kind of fun. If you're looking for TNA, there's plenty of very nice TNA in this. The movie itself doesn't know how to end, so it's they got to a point where we can't. We can't side with either side because they're just terrible people. And the movie doesn't realize that the real resolution here is that the 3 female leads, the 2 girlfriends and Joy Bushell, should just leave town and pursue a lesbian affair or something.
They should have a lesbian polyamorous relationship.
Yeah. But instead,
and then we get a sequel, which is them hanging out and playing pinball and
bouncing off,
eating each other out.
But no, this movie ends for no reason. It ends in a wacky chase sequence because there's literally a cutoff point where it's
because the van already existed, and so that's what they. It does feel a little bit like we're just ripping this off of better movies, to a certain
no, it's totally like the Crown International formula, where it's last 20 minutes we have to shoehorn a plot and a resolution in there, and that's what they do. Although they and we've kind of shit on this film, and it's worth shitting on. I don't necessarily recommend that people watch it, but at the same time, the pleasures of the film are just kind of that endless summer kind of aspect of that middle 45 minutes where it's just kind of people kind of goofing off and playing pranks on each other and kind of doing the thing. And it does kind of feel I was 17 and there was a summer and we all just kind of hung out and we did some shitty things, but ultimately, it makes sense on that level. But so Quentin Tarantino actually revived this at the New Beverly in 2007. Apparently he likes this film quite a bit, so there you go.
I actually believe that, especially in 2007, which is around the time he was doing Death Proof.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see that's kind of where his head was at that point. Yeah, no, I get that.
Budget for this was estimated $900,000. There's no box office for this. Apparently it didn't do that well.
It made $4. It's fine.
Yeah, I think it did moderately okay in Canada, and then when they re-released it in the US, it was DVD info, 2002 DVD from Platinum Disc Corporation under the Pickup Summer title, which was sort of trying to seemingly sell this as a Skinamax softcore title at the time. Even the cover art is just totally devoid from what the film actually is. And if you look at the cover art for the VHS,
they sell it as being the cheerleaders or something, which it isn't.
Yeah. And there you go. So what are we doing next time, Daniel? We have one more week for sex comedy stuff, and I threw it to you to basically just pick.
Well, I had in DMs we had kind of talked about like, what do we want to do? And I was like, oh yeah, it would be really like fun to do some like Judd Apatow stuff. And I had like thrown out like, let's do a month and do like 4 titles. But ultimately, the only one that I really want to do, let's do Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Let's do that one, which is a legitimately great film, which I've seen many, many times, and is a lot of fun. And I think we will enjoy talking about it. And I have kind of a history with. So, yeah, let's do that one next week and kind of round out this series.
I would watch Mila Kunis being awesome any day. So, yeah, let's do that.
Well, Mila Kunis and Kristen Bell, yeah, we'll talk about it next week. Let's do that one for next week and just, like, be done with it.
All right, cool. So where can people find you on the interwebs?
Sorry, I do the joke. Well, people should find me on the interwebs. I've done that. We've done 174 of these, and I've probably made that joke like 50 times at this point. Yeah. But I assume nobody listens to this. It's fine. You can find me on the internet. I'm on Twitter at Daniel E. Harper. I try to respond to DMs, but I don't always because I get a lot of DMs because I do a podcast about Nazis and Nazi shit, and it's called I Don't Speak German. It's I Don't Speak German.libsyn.com. It's a thing that I'm passionate about is punching Nazis on the internet. So go check that out if you haven't. Although I can't imagine anybody listening to this doesn't know about that podcast at this point. And yeah, that's where you can find me on the internet.
Yeah, and you can find us at tmbdos.podbean.com, where you can find our Apple Podcast, YouTube, and Facebook links. Join the Facebook group. Best way to get in contact with us. Recommend films, and tell us if we're crap or awesome. That way we'll see it. Just so you know, like, if you comment on our Facebook group, as opposed to our YouTube versions of this podcast, you're probably going to sound at least 53% more intelligent, at the very least.
12% more intelligent.
12%. That's a joke for another podcast, Daniel. You're crossing the streams at this point. That's just terrible.
I assume everyone who listens to this listens to everything that we ever do because
they
get the inside jokes. Yeah.
But yeah, until then, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Daniel, and we will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Cheers.
Pinball Summer, I'll take you on. Pinball Summer, won't you come along to my Pinball Summer?
You have been listening to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. For other episodes, our links to Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and our Facebook group, as well as links to podcasts and websites of similar interest, please visit us at tmbdos.podbean.com. Thank you. Drive through.